Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Guys, I am right now in central Ukraine and I want to present you today Dnipro. I'm not sure if camera is able to show you the vastness of this river and just how big it is, but I hope this gives you a whole new perspective about what challenges Russians are facing when we're talking about Russians crossing Dnipro River. Maybe if I turn here towards the bridge, you can kind of see a little bit better what the scale of this river is. So I want to talk today about some of the developments with regards to quote-unquote negotiations process, because in his somewhat recent speech, Marco Rubio has been basically acknowledging that they don't see any purpose in these negotiations that are happening between United States, Russia, and Ukraine. And let's be very clear, it was pretty one-sided quote-unquote negotiations to begin with. Mostly it was expected that at some point Trump is going to start maybe pressuring both sides to achieve some kind of a outcome that would be bringing both sides, so to say, closer to ending this war. Yet, unfortunately, what we saw mostly that was Trump's administration pressuring Ukraine, whereas Russia was being proposed all of the possible benefits of sort of ending this war, with specifically the appointed negotiators from the United States side being Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff going countless times to Moscow to talk with Putin and his cronies, and coming to Kyiv exactly 0 times. So let's be very clear that there was no special negotiations, but it was a very sort of a beneficial circus for Russia to try to show that they're sort of ready for these negotiations. So while there is a lot of people that are looking at the statements made by Marco Rubio and thinking that this is a step back to where we were heading, in my perspective, that this is a little bit more honest perspective that we are now finding ourselves in. Because let's be very honest, United States was already out of these negotiations in any kind of serious format for a while now, especially since the Iranian conflict started and didn't go to, well, basically any plan. The lack of plan is the biggest issue. We all want the Iranian regime gone, let's be very honest about that as well. However, what is happening that is interesting is that there is sort of a weird wishful thinking about the fact that Putin wants to end the war, because there have been coming out countless articles recently about people just stating that, well, you know, but Putin really wants to end this war, which really baffled me, because if Putin really would want to end the war, then why would Marco Rubio then state that US is factually pulling out? Why would these journalists and analysts try to tell me? And the only reasonable answer that I can give you is that this is just wishful thinking. We see that a lot of people are reading a lot of different aspects into what Putin or Putin's surroundings are telling. We see that when Putin says that this war will end soon, that a lot of people are considering, in the West specifically, they're reading into it like, well, Putin is expecting to find some kind of a negotiated peace deal. Whereas in reality, when we now look at Putin's recent speeches, what he actually is meaning is that we will basically win Ukraine on a battlefield. We're going to talk a little bit about Putin's delusions, but it has been escalating immensely, because even the Z propagandists are right now questioning what is happening inside of great leaders' head, because Putin has been telling that they are that the situation of the armed forces of Ukraine has moved from being critical to now becoming catastrophic, and he's expecting their collapse in the coming, like, very nearest times. So there is a lot of delusion that is happening with Putin. The same statements that he also has been telling about the Oreshnik missile. I recently covered the consequences of the Russian strike, and I mentioned that this is the terror that Russia is conducting, and a lot of different Russian trolls came to the comments section and started talking that this is some kind of a payback, that Ukrainians need to be afraid. They also have been telling that the Oreshnik was very successfully used and supposedly destroyed a lot of valuable facilities, whereas now we actually saw the consequences of this Oreshnik missile, and it's really bad. Firstly, it turned out there's 2 Oreshnik missiles that were launched. The first one didn't even reach the Ukrainian-controlled territories and fell in the Donetsk region, some 300 kilometers from supposed target of Kiev. And then the second one was shot at Bila Tserkva, and the nearest valuable target that could have been targeted by this Oreshnik was some 500 meters away. So its essentially deviation of this missile is 500 or so meters, which is actually what it's supposed to be, because Oreshnik is not a missile that should be used without nuclear weapon. Like, it's not very capable, it's not very precise. Without nuclear capabilities, it is pretty useless. Yet it is now being presented by Putin and some of his propagandists and people that grew up on and repeat the Russian propaganda as some kind of a wonder weapon. And so despite all of this, despite Russia using all of these weapons, despite me showing you the damages that Russia has been that's conducted in Kiev, I think the biggest thing that I missed in my video explaining the Russian terror is that just how little damage that actually caused in a large sense. Kiev is massive. It's a massive city. So the damage that was dealt, localized, was, yes, very, very dangerous. But when you look about that, Russia used about $1 billion of dollars to strike Ukraine. And the damage was shopping mall, some windows, a couple houses where people slept at night collapsed, and some garages destroyed by them. They're one of the major super weapons. Then let's be very honest, it's not what you expect by spending $1 billion. Yet Putin is repeating these narratives like Ukraine is about to be wiped from the face of the planet. And this is where we're coming back to the reading into the Putin's words. Putin is in his world of delusion. A lot of people are wondering why it's happening. For me, it's not a secret, because this is the fate of all dictators. They are paranoid, they're living in their own small little world, and they are not perceiving the reality. You know more about what is happening in the war and what's the actual situation than Putin does. He does not have the direct line of actual truthful communication. The information he's receiving is not accurate at all. In his world, he is already taking over Donbass by the end of this year. We already see generals of Russia reporting to him that this is going to happen, and Russia is already advancing forward, even while the Z propagandists that are drawing maps and arrows that are very liberal to Russian values, they even are not reporting as much as being stated by the Russian Ministry of Defense. It's a joke. So when people in the Western media are starting to state that Putin is ready to negotiate, Putin is ready to come to an agreement, they're just reading their wishful thinking into what they would hope to expect. But coming back to negotiations, I think President Zelensky also outlined one very important thing. He stated that he knows there is a track of negotiations where Ukraine is being negotiated besides Ukraine. We all know what he's talking about. We absolutely don't even have to guess who exactly are the people, because while Rubio is stating that they are not looking to continue this settlement process between Russia and Ukraine, it's very clear that the Trump administration is willing to make contacts with Putin and enrich themselves. Let's be very clear and not even discuss here. So that's why it is paramount for Ukraine to continue being strong, and Ukraine is strong. And this is the crucial point of this whole video that I'm making, that the damages that Russia is doing are terror damages, but the terror damages are not directly translating to the military advantage. There was an article recently, I believe it was in Bloomberg, where they were stating that right now the war is in a standstill, that right now Russia cannot really advance on the front line, that their gains in 2026 have been minimal, but Ukraine is also not retaking territories. And I wanted to pull all my hair out, because Ukraine, if you think about it, Ukraine was in a weaker position all this time. Like I always stated, since 2023 and forward, I stated that Ukraine needs a couple of years to build up their defensive capabilities, building weapons, getting the army reforms ready, getting new people in, new training, finding the new tactics that work against Russia. All of this complex of innovation that Ukraine needed to start fighting Russians. Now Ukraine, even with having sort of a less manpower, which is pretty obvious, we know that, they're able to fight Russia and prevent them at achieving their goals. However, when people are claiming that's like, oh, but Ukraine is not retaking territory, I am pulling my hair out, because the correct statement is yet. Right? We have seen Ukraine going up there and reaching the power level sort of Russia. But Ukraine is not stopping. They are getting stronger. They are investing more in their weapon technologies, and they are delivering more and more reforms for the frontline forces and for the military force altogether. So when I'm being stated that, you know, like it doesn't matter, Russia is just, I don't know, is not going to advance, but Ukraine is not going to win, I am asking you, why are you stating that? Because a year ago, you were stating that Ukraine is bound to lose. And I was telling you, no, they're not. So right now, we're in a situation where people are looking at what's happening right now and cannot even examine what's going to happen like in a month, a day, or maybe a year. I think it's just lazy and it's just bad thinking. So Ukraine is getting stronger, and it's getting stronger thanks to your help. I want to say thanks to everyone that has been participating in the fundraiser so far, and I will call on everyone to continue participating, to supplying the Ukrainian armed forces with really great drones. Join the fundraiser, but most importantly, trust in Ukraine, support Ukrainian armed forces, support democracy. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you very, very soon, showing you even more of this beautiful country of Ukraine.